Well, I'm sort of back. Emphasis on sort of. The reason why I say sort of back is because I am trying to find the sound setting to adjust my microphone a little bit. Because I totally forget how to do the sound properties in OBS Studios. This is something I really should have done beforehand. Yeah. Let's see, filters. Yeah, that's what it is, right? So I have a, I think it's my compressor that's the issue. I'm gonna turn it down. Let's see. Okay, so sorry. Yeah, I know I shouldn't be doing sound settings right now. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so that's okay, cool. And then maybe it's the expander. Let's see. Alright, I'm gonna keep on talking and see if this changes. Yeah, okay, I think it's the expander. Okay, cool. You can hear a little bit of that background fuzz. Okay, yeah, so that's, okay, I think that might be what's, cutting off some of my, the beginning and end of every word that I say. It sounds like it might be cutting off the quietest parts. The compressor and expander and how they're balanced, it might be cutting off the quietest parts of every word I say. I just noticed, and as someone mentioned yesterday, my audio seems to be pretty quiet overall. And I also noticed when listening on playback recordings that, what is it? It seems like the beginning in every word gets canceled out just a little bit. So mostly only the middle of every word that I say comes through clearly while the rest of it doesn't, which is a bit annoying. So, all right, cool. Hopefully that is on the beginnings of being fixed. All right, so now what about actually what's going on today? Good question. Let's see. Sorry, I'm doing one last little adjustment. Just to see what this sounds like. Okay, it sounds like it's picking up the sound of the refrigerator across the room. That's funny. Okay, anyway, moving on. So, session 24. Whoa, very exciting stuff. 24 sessions, that's not bad. I have not given up yet. I have a feeling I'm gonna have to be changing what I do pretty soon. Because sometimes these streams end up being over like 2 hours long. But for now this works. So, yeah, what to do? Okay, so this is, I still haven't made a professional looking border for this. This is Match Shots Volume 2 Challenge. It is a challenge that I made up as a storyboarding warm-up exercise. It uses the book Master Shots Volume 2 by which is a book written by Christopher Kenworthy. It's a book about cinematography and different ways to stage dialogue in interesting ways that make it so it's not boring for the audience to watch your movie or film. So the goal of this challenge is to use 2 sections from the book that are selected at random, and then draw a scene out for about 22 to 40 minutes with an ideal average drawing speed of 1 panel every 15 to 20 seconds, though realistically that average doesn't get hit very frequently. Trying to think. Yeah, that's this concept. I again am a little bit on a time crunch, so I might only do 1 section instead of 2 sections. Yesterday, that's what happened. I was on a time crunch, and so the sequence was decided to only do 1 section, which was head to head, and I think it still turned out pretty well. I think if I had to have combined 2 different sections, this would have been more of a nightmare, and the stream probably would have lasted way too long. So I think it's good where it left off. Alright, so I'm going to get my random dice generator and begin to roll. So let's see. So I know I keep on saying that I'm gonna have like a pre-launch for a Kickstarter page soon, and I actually do have it like enough content for the pre-launch page for Kickstarter. The issue is that there's someone else that I know that has something vaguely similar going on at the same time, and I know really Kickstarter challenges don't like step on the toes of other ones, but just for, I don't know, politeness reasons, kind of like, I'll keep mine back by a few days or weeks, just until their campaign is more well on the way, so that it doesn't compete with theirs. Let's see, what did I roll? I rolled. Okay. Well, I rolled 7.3, which is finding the lens, which we've done this before. But I will do it again. This is not a very difficult concept. Again, I'm starting to see that maybe this random dice generator or roller, it has some favorites. There's certain ones that I've seen that have been rolled like 4 or 5 times. But all right, what is finding the lens? So, as you may have noticed, when I do tracking shots, this is something that I do very frequently. Finding the lens, at least broadly speaking, is when you're doing a tracking shot or long take or characters moving through an environment. So let's say you have, you got this guy and he's walking through an environment where like it's a crowd of people. There's all these people, and maybe there's, the May the 4th be with you, Darth Vader. Jeez Louise, I can't even draw Darth Vader anymore. Yeah, there's a Macy's Day Parade or something going on. I always use Macy's Day Parade as an example. I don't know why. I guess because it has like big objects and small objects and stuff like that. Okay, so character's walking through a crowd, and then like maybe he has a friend with him, one of his cohorts. So they're walking in front of the camera. And then what you do is, while these 2 characters are talking to each other, for some reason, you have one of the characters look back while they're talking. And maybe the other character continues to move onward. something like that. And so what this does is this allows you to see a little bit of the facial expression and acting. So like an easy thing that you could do is you could have like a kid run by. You know, a kid runs by and like bumps into him. And so then that like motivates him to turn around. Other things you can do is have the characters actually once maybe they I don't know. Maybe as they're walking through the crowd, they find like a, you know, there's like a light post or something like that. And then maybe what you can do is you can get them to a point where they are now talking. So like they're at this light post. We can get them where one of the characters is maybe talking from the side. So then that way you can see his acting and his facial expressions a bit more. And then maybe there's, you know, there's like, I cannot draw Snoopy. What the heck? Whatever. This is Snoopy at the Macy's Day Parade. So you can see there's a crowd back there. And so we got this kind of like a silhouette shot. And there's some people over here. And then you can have the other character watching it. Maybe he's drinking coffee or something. And so you see what's happening is that we're able to see these characters' facial expressions. Even though we're following them from behind for most of the scene, because of these little techniques, we're getting some of their acting. And so that's essentially what the concept of finding the lens is. It's figuring out different little creative ways to be able to see the character's facial expressions and acting when normally, logically, you might not see it. Yeah. Anyway, it is not difficult. This is something I do in every tracking shot I do. Intuitively, this stuff just happens. Part of the reason is because like it's fun to see like emotional expression changes and whatnot in a scene, and to make a character take in their environment. Like it's just fun to draw, to have a character go like, ooh, that's interesting, like, ooh, that's neat, or like, you know, ooh, someone runs by and almost bumps into them, they get mad. You know, it's little stuff like that that grounds a character into their environment. It makes it feel like that they're actually somewhere. And then coincidentally, it's also great for getting them to show their face near the camera. Okay, so I'm going to I said I wouldn't do 2, but I might peek into Pandora's box and see what it would be if I were to have rolled another dice. So I rolled section 2.1, which is circular dialogue, which is one that we have also done before. So, you know, I guess it makes sense of running to ones I've done before, because I'm doing 2 a day. I've done this for 24 sessions. It's like, you know, like basically half the book technically has been gone through. Okay. Okay, so let's say that I stayed with section 2.1 just because I like explaining things. So section 2.1, which was theoretically rolled, circular dialogue. Yeah, no, this one was done last week. Either way, I'll re-explain it. So circular dialogue, again, nothing complicated. All that's going on, so you have character 1. Here's character 1. Maybe here's character 2. Maybe he's like sitting at a table or something. And you notice character 1 is on screen left, character 2 is on screen right. And what happens is the camera might begin orbiting this whole discussion. And you see this guy's like, I think the Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you should, join it. Okay. I got my Star Wars Detours quote in for the day. So, and so now you see character 1 is now on screen right. Very interesting. Potentially, he could even do a secondary move where he leans in. He's like, you are hiding enemies of the state, aren't you? Or something like that. Maybe he's got something in his pocket he's going to pull out. And so what happens is you can change the sides of the screen that a character's on to show if a power dynamic has occurred. So you see character who is sitting is now on screen left. Ooh, character 2 is now on screen left. And character who's standing is now on screen right. So you see what's happened is because the camera orbited, it actually reversed their positions. And so this is important because this can be related to the dialogue. So maybe the dialogue, there's like a power dynamic shift that occurred in the dialogue where one of the characters is like, I'm in on your little secret and I know that you've done this thing. And so then the dialogue is implying that, oh my goodness, this guy knows something that we didn't think he knew. Like the audience wasn't aware that he knew of. But then what could happen is character 2 potentially could make up a good excuse or something for his story, And then the camera could continue to keep on orbiting. Sorry, this is a weird angle. It could continue to keep on orbiting as he tells his story. And then what's going to happen is, okay, so we're moving behind character 1. Is that then character 2, his story actually makes sense. And then maybe he leans in a little bit. And he's like, yeah, no, I was mountain climbing. And character 1 is like, what? And maybe the story, for some reason, makes sense. So you see what happened is, character 1, because of the camera orbit, as he's talking, he gains control. He shifts over to screen right. But then what happens, as character 2 makes an explanation for himself, the camera continues to orbit instead of just stopping there. Maybe it only stops there briefly. And then he regains control, and he's now back on screen right where he started. So you see, he started on screen right, antagonizing guy is on screen left, antagonizing guy gains screen right, and then victim guy regains his lost position. And so now he's still safe at the end of the day. So yeah, that's things to consider with circular dialogue is just are you using it to intentionally show that some sort of change has occurred with the characters? Granted, other directors like Michael Bay, for example, will do these orbits where the main point is just to get the audience hyped. There's nothing really meaningful happening in the dialogue as it's circular, but it's there to get you hype. Famously, even as this book points out, the movie Inglourious Bastards, from 2010 by Quentin Tarantino, uses circular dialogue for half the movie. Okay, maybe that's not true. It feels like half the movie uses circular dialogue scenes and shots. That entire movie is just a game with tension and dialogue dynamics. I'm convinced that it was written for no other reason than that. But, okay, cool. Let's continue. And, make a scene. Okay, 90 panels. There's probably a faster way to do that, but whatever. You know, I might actually reuse the same two characters from the previous scene. Just for the heck of it. The reason for this is because I think it's a little bit easier to at least be grounded to some sort of character that maybe I've established beforehand. So I'm not having to write, I don't know, completely, you know, I'm not as guilty if I repeat environments, essentially. I'm like, oh man, we're at a destroyed spaceship in space, what a coincidence. It's like, yeah, it's just part of the narrative. Well, originally, I said I was only going to do one of these, but it kind of looks like I might be doing both. Okay. I think I already know what kind of shot I want to do, what kind of scene I want to do. We'll see how it goes. Okay, hold on. I need to translate something. Just got a message. That is in a language I do not speak. Alright, let's get going. Okay. So, gonna get my interval timer. Yep, I'm trying to think, because I don't know how to do all this fancy stuff on Twitch. Maybe for next month. I keep on saying hypotheticals, but maybe for next month I'll like, oh wait, this is next month. It's May. Dang it. Maybe in some month I'll figure out how to get, you know, all the little animated GIF files or whatever the heck, emojis, and then have fancy stuff so you can like actually see my interval timer to keep track. But, all right. All right, I'm going to draw some background elements. Because there's like space debris or whatever the heck. Okay. So is this good? Cool. All right, I'm gonna start 3, 2, 1, go. That was a rushed launch. Okay. Having this handmade background is probably a mistake. So I am going to actually just draw in. Okay, I'm going to have our first character. He's already here. The blue kid. Yeah, I am not gonna have this background be any more animated than this. He's flying through here. This character. Sorry, I'm doing multiple things where this environment is turning and this character is turning. I'm gonna put the second character in shadows or something like that. You're gonna have to imagine this. This is the inside of like a destroyed chunk of spaceship. That's also rotating. So you see the rooms rotating. I should actually maybe someday explain why I do this technique so often. I always have rotations with rotations when I do these like orbiting sequence, or these types of sequences, but it's a little difficult for me to explain right now while I'm drawing. Should also probably note that being in space is not the same as being underwater, so I don't think your hair moves like this, but whatever. Okay. Basically, there was, sorry, I'm kind of explaining it now. Years ago, there was a sequence I did called A Plum Man, which was this really, really long over-the-top tracking shot of this superhero running through the interior of a ship, like a rocket ship, that was out of control and kind of free-falling and everything. And I boarded that sequence, no joke, probably like 20 or 30 times. In every different like way and manner, because it was my first time like really trying to make a really complicated tracking shot like that, where it was like one version of it was like 10 minutes long. Like it was obscenely long. And so since that was like my first time doing that, I went through like every failed version of like how to do that kind of shot when storyboarding it. And that's also how I got good at doing shots like this, because in that sequence, the entire environment was constantly turning and spinning. And it was, the whole point was that the character could never have a moment of rest. So that was actually part of their character plot / development, was that they could never be at rest because this environment was always shifting. It was symbolic or something. And ever since then, it's been like really easy for the most part for me to do sequences like this, where the camera needs to turn like the whole time. And there's something going on. So I'm going to have it that the other kid, maybe we can just barely see his hand. He's somehow up over the corner here. I don't know how. I want us to see his face just a little bit to imply that we're heading towards something. I want her eyes to be peeking over the ledge first. Before she fully comes up.
Then we're going to have him in the foreground. He's somehow found something that's making him think as she circles. This is also very reminiscent to Blue Beetle scenes I did when working on DC Heroes United. Blue Beetle was always like this, where he's floating around in all the storyboards. She's like, what is it? Maybe she's a little mad because her question from the previous episode still has not been answered. She's like, you still haven't answered my question. She's like, I want the facts. Give it to me straight. Don't obfuscate your answer. That's exactly you're being intentionally enigmatic in your responses, and this does not please me. This is the normal 6-year-old dialogue. She's like, I need to know this because how will I go to sleep at night if our spaceship blows up? Or it should really be something that's not that high of stakes, where it's like she's upset that maybe her goldfish will die or something like that, but she doesn't even take in the implication that they too will die. I don't know. Actually, I just realized I also kind of did something like this with that one sci-fi blob character, tracking one character. It's on my YouTube. This is actually eerily reminiscent of it. I don't like this panel. Okay. sorry, I'm now just drawing her as basically a circle. So he's going to take the lead. And we're going to see what he's seeing. Maybe it's some sort of device. Some sort of... Nah, it should be a vault. There should be like a vault with something in it. Really, there should be a cut here. The camera shouldn't pan down. There should be a cut because as an audience, this seems like this is a plot point reveal. And so it is more important that we see what it is he is talking about immediately. My goodness, the opacity tool never does what I want it to do. Okay. Maybe here's like destroyed wires and wreckage, and maybe there's like claw marks on here. Someone else tried to get into this container. Or maybe that implies that there's something living in the wreckage of the ship that they are not aware of. Here, I'll have little stuff floating by. Whoa. Little space greeblies will be... something like that. Things floating by in the foreground. And also it gets my frame count up. It makes it look like I'm drawing more than I really am. Yeah. We should cut when she looks over at it. Where she's like, hmm? And then, oops. Oh no. Okay, I'm back on track. She's like, ooh. She's like, what is it? That is a very scary expression. That is too big of teeth. That is a less scary expression. Much more pleasant. He's just gonna lift his arm up. Hmm? He's gonna say something simple. He's like, I don't know, he's like, this is important or something. No, we can't touch this. How much time do I have left? We're gonna cut in real close. He's like, do you know what this is? You're gonna see his eyes. Cut in super close. Maybe he's gonna... And she's like... do you know what that is? She's like, nope. I do. Sorry, I watched, what was it, Coffee Date by Nonamoose, and I think that that facial expression got locked into my memory. The tongue sticking out thing. Alright, well my timer ran up. Or ran out. But it's interesting. It's another part of the same sequence. Alright, so did I get circular dialogue and finding the lens? Well, I got finding the lens. And I got the beginnings of circular dialogue. I did have an orbit in here. But the circular dialogue was not super extreme. It was mostly off camera. So here we are. We're following this guy. And then she shows up. And they're talking to each other while going through space. And he's up there talking. And so this is technically kind of circular dialogue, but not in the same sense. So they're talking back and forth, and she's like, "Hey, I need explanations for what we're talking about earlier. I feel like you're not answering my questions because you don't know and have a wealth of ignorance or something. How will I be able to go to sleep at night with all this existential dread or whatnot? I don't know. I have no idea what she's talking about. Something that worries her. It's like, do you know what this is? She's like, ooh, it's very pretty. It's like, let me get to... It's like, do you actually know what this is? Okay. I think I'm gonna emphasize his facial expression even more. I'm gonna use a bigger brush. Here's this little space helmet thing. Okay, well, that ends the scene. I don't know what this thing is, but apparently he knows what it is. So maybe there's a little bit of intrigue. So how many panels was that? 16 plus 46. Not a ton, but this is an orbiting shot with a mobile background, or moving background, and 2 moving characters. So whatever, I'm just gonna keep on making excuses. Either way, thank you all for watching. I think this wraps up today's session, and fortunately this session did not last super long. So yeah, anyway, have a great rest of your day, and thank you. Man, geez, my tongue is just not working today. Thank you for dropping by, and have a great rest of your day. See ya. Bye.